So we need more help. So even if you have a healthy person and they cut themselves, that cut is going to take X amount of time to heal, depending on the age of the person, depending on the depth of the cut, the kind of cut, the other conditions surrounding it, and so on. So PEMF therapy will accelerate that. It will take about half the time that it would normally take.
Wow. Have you made it past menopause, or are you going through it now? I'm Dr. Pat McShane, and on the Women's Healthspan Voices podcast, I'll guide you through the health challenges of the menopausal years and beyond, guiding the way to thriving in this powerful era of your womanhood. Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Pat McShane. Welcome to Women's Healthspan Voices. And our voice today is Dr. William or Bill Pawluk. I'm very interested to see the kinds of things that Dr. Pawluk is going to be telling us about today, because he's an expert in a broad range of topics, starting out as a family physician and now is doing consulting primarily, having retired from direct clinical medicine. So I'm going to let Dr. Bill tell us more about his current practice and a little bit about his background, which includes acupuncture, homeopathy, bodywork, a number, functional medicine, energy medicine, and so he can tell us what his focus is at this point. Dr. Bill, please.
Thank you. Well, to lay on top of what you just said, I called myself an unhappy doctor. I was not happy until I could solve your problem, right? So I made myself happy by solving your problem. And I stay unhappy because we're always learning, right? We're always picking up new ideas. We have to, because we can't solve all problems with any particular single modality or approach, right? So you have to be comprehensive. You have to be holistic. Fundamentally, to do adequate medicine, you have to be holistic.
Yes, one hopes.
One hopes. Well, you can be holistic, but the other person may not be holistic, right?
That's also true. Yeah.
That's a big part of the problem. So along the way, I learned an expression, or I developed the expression, actually. You can lead a horse to water, and then you start an IV.
I'll have to think about that one.
Well, not everybody takes the water that they've been given or prescribed, right? And there are some people who you can supply the water, and they still have an IV started.
Well, let's assume for today that our audience here is going to be
don't need IVs.
eagerly soaking up all the information that you're going to tell us. Thank you.
All right, I look forward to that. So my background, basically, as a family physician, because that's how I started. I was a medical director for a group of family physicians. I basically had developed the largest medical group of family physicians on the whole East Coast of the U.S., 14 doctors, that was outside academic medicine. And we shared patients. We rounded on patients in the hospital on a regular basis, as individuals. And in the space of a very short period of time, I had like 3 people who almost died of PEMF, who almost died of GI bleeding, gastric bleeding. And because they were, and the commonality with all of them was ibuprofen. So they were all taking high doses of ibuprofen for chronic pain. And I said, this is insanity. This is a definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for no bad results or no side effects or complications, etc. So I said, I got to do something different. I've been doing the same old thing for decades now at that point. And I said, I have to find a different route to help people with pain. And these are in the days before the government said nobody should be in pain.
Mm-hmm.
When the government said nobody should be in pain, the doors blew wide open for opioids, right? We used to be very conservative about using opioids. So you either had pain, you had Tylenol, you had ibuprofen, you had surgery, right? You had the common procedures, but rarely would you prescribe opioids. So anyway, so I learned acupuncture, and from there, basically, I found out that I couldn't do acupuncture. This was in 1990, because people would not accept needles for treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, how do I do acupuncture without using needles? And then I discovered that magnetic field therapy was being used in Asia on acupuncture points to do acupuncture. So I started working with magnets and discovered along the way that magnets were also healing the tissue. They were doing other things to the tissue other than just the acupuncture point stimulation. So blew the doors wide open. So basically, I stopped doing acupuncture, and then I started doing magnetic therapy, because I found out also that magnetic therapy stimulates acupuncture points and meridians. So every time you do magnetic field therapy, you're doing acupuncture, because the meridians and points are all over the place. So anytime you do a magnetic field, you're including a bunch of acupuncture points and meridians in that field, and that spreads through the whole body once you do that. And so PEMF therapy does, at the very least, that. So I started working more and more and more with magnetic field therapy because now I was healing tissue. I was not only helping pain, I was helping the cause of the pain.
Which is the definition of functional medicine, dealing with the root cause,
The
not
root
just
causes and trying
the.
to resolve root cause. And so to me, helping somebody with pain is important, but it comes back. That makes me an unhappy doctor, right? It comes back. So what am I doing wrong that we're not solving the problem? Now, we have to admit, there's a pretty substantial percentage of the time we can't solve the problem. I mean, if you have a lumbar disc or you have arthritis in your lumbar spine and it's pressing against a nerve in your spine, it's causing back pain. Well, you're going to get rid of that nerve, right? Generally speaking, or if you do abolish the nerve, you do destructive procedures to the nerve, you create other problems, right? So basically, PEMF therapy was doing things to the tissues that you didn't expect and doing more to the tissues than acupuncture ever could. And as a result of all of this work with acupuncture and magnetic fields, I met a doctor from the Czech Republic who was an MD, PhD, and he got his PhD in magnetic field therapy and rehab. And he had translated a lot of this Eastern European literature, which was hidden behind the, if you will, the Iron Curtain, right?
and the language curtain.
The language curtain and the alphabet curtain and so on. So I got the manuscript and I published a book with him, co-authored a book called Magnetic Therapy in Eastern Europe, a review of 30 years of research. This is 1980, 30 years of research already.
Wow.
Right? Hidden behind the Iron Curtain, behind the language curtain, as you said. So that really just amazed me because there was a lot of research already supporting the use of PEMF therapy for all kinds of conditions, including women's health. So
just to remind people that PEMF is pulsed electromagnetic therapy.
Field.
Yeah, field therapy.
So we call it magnetic therapy, but really it's a specific form of magnetic therapy because you can use magnets, which is I've done that a lot, using magnets on acupuncture points. And it makes a big difference. Or using magnets on a pain point, say a sore elbow or a carpal tunnel problem or arthritis of the thumbs or hands or whatever. So they can do their own job for that. Again, being holistic, I'm not looking just at treating your hand. If you walk in my office, it's not just your hand. Your hand may lead, but your hand is attached to the rest of you, right? Right. So we have to think holistically that it's not just the horse you rode in on, it's the horse as well.
And whatever condition affects your hand is going to go to the other side and to your ankle and to your knee in many cases as well. So exactly. Holistic approach is good. Yeah.
Pain is the pain in your thumb is not just in your thumb. The pain in your thumb is in your whole body. Right? Because the pain signal from your thumb goes to your brain. The brain releases all kinds of neurochemicals, and they spread out through the bloodstream to the rest of the body. So your whole body ultimately becomes affected by any pain. And so, again, you have to think more comprehensively. So sometimes all we do is focus on where the source of the pain is, and that may be okay. But if you have referred pain in your hand from your neck, well, you got to treat the neck, not the hand. And what do people do is they treat the hand, and it doesn't get any better. Well, surprise, surprise, because that's not the source of the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So holistically speaking, then basically PEMF therapy has about 27 different actions. So I've written 2 other books as well. One is called Power Tools for Health, and it has 500 references on all the actions of magnetic fields and also references for how magnetic fields treat about 50 different health conditions. So it's science supported. This is not guesswork. Now, is there more to learn? Clearly, there's always more to learn. Right? Mm-hmm. But we have a huge amount of background scientific basis for what we're doing with PEMF therapy. So pulse magnetic fields are pulsing magnetic fields. A static magnet, it just sits there and does nothing. The body has to do the work. And even with pulse magnetic fields, the body has to do the work. All we're doing is giving the body a fighting chance. We're telling the body, here's some energy for you. Go to work. And the body does that.
We could all use more energy, I suspect.
All of us can use more energy.
Especially as we get older.
Even a healthy body is only about 25% efficient in converting fuel or energy into work.
Uh-huh.
We're relatively inefficient. We're about as efficient as a car engine, an automobile engine, in terms of having the work for us, if you will. So we need more help. So even if you have a healthy person and they cut themselves, that cut is going to take X amount of time to heal. depending on the age of the person, depending on the depth of the cut, the kind of cut, the other conditions surrounding it, and so on. So PEMF therapy will accelerate that. It will take about half the time that it would normally take.
Wow.
To heal that wound.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I had to have an appendectomy, an elective appendectomy for a tumor that was in my appendix discovered on colonoscopy. And so I had a laparoscopic partial colectomy, or a cecectomy, actually. Appendix was removed. And I treated 2 stab wounds with magnets, with PEMF, small PEMFs, and I kept the 3rd stab wound as a control. I had surgery done on Friday, midday. I was back to work on Monday.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Right?
So let's move a little bit over to the specific clinical side for postmenopausal women. What kinds of things might bring somebody into your office or in your consulting practice that would lead them to a good result with PEMF?
So one of the sort of, I guess, misconceptions in a sense of your presentation, your talk, and your focus is that menopause is attached to the rest of that body. So what happens in a body with menopause? There's a whole lot of physiologic changes in the body, right?
Huge number. Yep.
Whole lot. And pain is one of them. Pelvic pain syndrome, for example, vulvodynia.
Mm-hmm.
These are common issues in menopause. And one of the problems with menopause, of course, that causes that is, of course, the lack of hormones. But it's not only the lack of estrogen, and we're kind of tied up with the whole idea of just estrogen. It's not about estrogen. I tested virtually all my menopausal patients for testosterone too. Mm-hmm. Almost all of them are testosterone deficient. Mm-hmm. So testosterone is important for muscles and bone. So if you're just on estrogen replacement, you're probably not on adequate replacement. And I used to do BIHRT, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Mm-hmm. So after I got into holistic medicine, I said enough of this pharmacologic crap, right? And progesterone, for example, the hormones that women get often, even in IUDs that are embedded in the IUD, that eluting hormones, they are the wrong kind of progesterone.
Synthetic, yes.
Synthetic. So you throw progesterone against the wall and see what sticks, and say, "Oh, well, that looks like progesterone. Let's do that one."
Yeah.
Right. So that's a tragedy of what happens, and this is why now the government is beginning to back off the black box warnings for hormone replacement therapy. Thank goodness. Mm-hmm. So menopause is one of the most common problems with menopause, besides vaginal atrophy or vulvar atrophy and recurrent UTIs, is also bone density. Right? Bone density, yes. And also sarcopenia, loss of muscle mass.
Yes. Fractures, falls, loss of balance, the whole cascade of events.
Exactly. Yes. So there's a misconception too about osteoporosis that it's just the hips and the spine. Right? Because that's where we image when we do DEXA scanning, is just the hips and the spine that we measure. But where's osteoporosis?
Everywhere. All
the
your
whole
bones.
Skeleton.
Yeah. Your wrist,
And the most common fractures actually in menopause or postmenopause are wrists and feet and clavicles. Mm-hmm. They're much more common than hip fractures or spinal fractures. Now, those are disastrous fractures. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. But what happens then is if you just focus on those body parts and try to stimulate those body parts, well, it's not enough, because you really need to be stimulating the whole skeleton. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of doctors basically end up failing. So when you're doing magnetic field therapy, you shouldn't be doing it just to the hips and spine. You should be doing it to the whole skeleton. And to do that, you need an adequately strong magnetic field. So there are lots of magnetic therapy devices being sold where the reps won't even tell you what the intensity of the magnetic field is. And I said, well, if you don't know what the intensity is, you don't know what you're getting. Mm-hmm. Would you buy a car if the salesman wouldn't tell you what the horsepower is?
Or the miles per gallon, or
Well, anyway, those
0 to 60. Lots of stuff.
Any of those specifications.
Yeah.
So we're in the era of PEMF therapy where they're not going to tell you.
Uh-huh.
And so on one of my talks, I actually have a list, and I can provide that to you, so you could also put that on your page. Is all the different devices that are way too low. Science has shown us, now we have evidence now of inflammation. Who doesn't have inflammation?
Nobody I know.
Nobody I know either.
We all have it, yeah.
Unless you're communicating to the other side.
There's good inflammation and there's over the top inflammation. We all have hopefully good inflammation.
We have enough good, but we want it to stop when it's supposed to stop, right?
That's right.
And so inflammation then is inflammaging. We now call it inflammaging. And inflammaging is raging. We have to use that expression. Inflammaging is raging in women postmenopausally.
Yes.
Right. So what science has shown us is that you need 15 Gauss. So Gauss, Gauss, is the measure of magnetic field intensity. The Earth's magnetic field is about half a Gauss.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now we have devices that the government has approved for healing, helping people with depression, postmenopausal depression, other kinds of depression as well. And these devices are called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS.
Mm-hmm.
They are 13,000 Gauss. 13,000. To do adequate stimulation for bone density, you have to, like radiation therapy, you have to calculate the dose for the depth that you're trying to treat.
Mm-hmm.
PEMF therapy is non-ionizing radiation, but it's still subject to the rules of radiation, the physics.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you have to do a calculation for, if you're trying to deliver 15 Gauss 4 inches into the body to decrease inflammation optimally at that point, then you have to calculate the dose that you need to go 4 inches into the body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start off with a 200 Gauss magnetic field, how deep is that going to go into the body based on the rules of physics where the intensity drops off logarithmically? In other words, really rapidly. So 1,000 Gauss magnetic field 1 centimeter away will drop off to 250. 1 centimeter.
Mm-hmm.
So what about 4 inches?
Yep. And does flesh provide a barrier?
Zero.
Besides zero barrier.
The body is completely
really
transparent.
The length is really the only metric
that's the key metric.
Looking at.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then some people argue that the frequency is important, but I, in my 35 years of working with PEMF therapy and having published several books, I realized that basically it's not so much about the pulse rate as the intensity of the pulse itself.
Mm-hmm.
So basically how high and how fast that pulse goes up. And that determines the amount of energy production in the body. So scientifically, we call it inductively coupled electrical stimulation. So in other words, we're interacting with body parts. We're interacting with the tissues and the molecules in the body to produce charge. So as the magnetic field goes through the body, it induces charge in the tissues. And the body then, that charge production is up to the body how it wants to use it. I can't tell it what to do. The body says, okay, I like this. I'm going to use this, and it's going to help me to heal my bones, or it's going to help me to heal my fibromyalgia, or it's going to help me to heal my vulvodynia, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So PEMF therapy that is good for brain, in other words, good for anything that relates to the brain. And nowadays we're complicated by this whole post-COVID thing, right? And whatever happened with COVID and whether you got your shots and then how your body reacted to all those shots. But PEMF therapy just deals with all of that. Doesn't matter what the cause is. Doesn't matter what the tissue is. The body is completely transparent to a magnetic field. Hallelujah. And it's extraordinarily safe. So that TMS stuff that we're talking 13,000 Gauss to the brain. If I wanted to treat a carpal tunnel or a wrist injury, I may only need 200 Gauss. So we have this huge range of magnetic field intensities that are amazingly safe.
Does I'm sorry, go ahead.
You may say that I'm going to treat my pain, or you may say I'm going to treat my vulvodynia, or you may say I'm going to treat my vaginal atrophy. But the magnetic field doesn't care. It's not going to say I'm going to treat your vaginal atrophy. I'm going to help that tissue to be as healthy as possible. Whatever tissue you're exposing to you're trying to optimize the function of that tissue. Now, if you happen to be hormone deficient, there's only so much you can do. So I say that you can't build a house without bricks and mortar, right? You need supplies to build a house. In the body, you need supplies to build tissue, to rebuild tissue. So for bones, if you want to do osteoporosis management, you're going to have to supply the body with the minerals and the hormones that the bones are going to need to optimally affect them. So you have to really combine therapies to get the best results. Magnetic therapy will still do a lot more than almost anything else we in medicine can do. So what happens is then you're giving the body a fighting chance, and the body will use what it wants from the chance you gave it.
So I'm inferring from your comments that one should seek a practitioner, physician, or other kind of practitioner who's comfortable with the PEMF therapy before just going off and using these modalities on your own. Is that
Yeah,
a
no,
correct?
they're completely safe to be used on their own. But yes, you're absolutely right. You're going to get the best results by combining information, by
Okay.
combining knowledge, by combining techniques and approaches. So hormone therapy, I would never treat a woman with osteoporosis without doing hormone therapy.
Right.
What's the point? Because you're only going to be able to get so far with the actual stimulation of the bones themselves to grow. But if they don't have the nutrients to supply them, so for example, you can move calcium into tissues to enhance bone, but you also need more than that. You need boron and just a whole bunch of molecules,
Magnesium and yeah, right. On
right?
and
So
on. Yeah.
all a lot. There's like 10 different things that you can probably use. In fact, I have an osteoporosis protocol that I hand people who come to me with osteoporosis. So they need to be supplying their body with the nutrients to be able to rebuild the bone. Then, of course, they have to do the treatment on a regular basis. Does osteoporosis ever sleep?
No, I don't think
No,
so.
no. And even if you do all the exercise in the world, is that going to be good enough?
Yeah.
Probably not, right? Because then we're relying on the bone bank you built when you were a kid,
Right.
right? And that bone bank is used up in our lives. And then if you're depriving the bone of stimulation through hormones or support through hormones, well, then it's going to degrade even faster than normal. So you still have to do all the basic stuff to maintain the health of the body.
And this therapy is something that one should be doing on a daily basis, it sounds like, from what I've read of your other materials. And therefore, that you need to really have a device in your own home to produce the field.
You're making a very important point, because you can go to a doctor, you can go to a holistic doctor who understands PEMF therapy, and that's fine. They will accept it, and they may even recommend it. They may even supply it, which is actually a good thing too, because then it's integrated. But if you have spinal stenosis, are you ever going to stop doing magnetic therapy? Not unless you remove your spine, right? That's not going to happen. So basically, you need to be combining things for the rest of your life. So one of the ways I answer the question about how much therapy should you be doing, I tell people we have about 100 trillion cells in our bodies, and about every cell has about a million biochemical processes per second. How much treatment time do we need? You never get enough, right? But you're not going to be doing it all day long every day. That's the value of hormone therapy. But even hormones, they wax and wane, so you have to keep replacing them as well. So PEMF therapy then basically is you got to do it enough to get the results you want. For example, with a cut or a wound, a serious wound, like I did with my appendectomy, I treated my belly, those stab wounds in my belly, 24/7 until Monday morning, from Friday afternoon to Monday morning, 24/7, because the magnetic field was weak enough and it's stimulating the healing processes of the tissues. So if you stimulate it, is one treatment enough?
No.
Okay, if you're trying to kick a rock or roll a rock uphill, do you ever stop rolling if you
No.
want it to go to the top of the hill?
No, you keep pushing.
You keep pushing. You got to do what you got to do. You can't take corners. You can't cheat and say, okay, all I want is one treatment a day. I want to pop one pill a day. That's all I'm going to do, and I'm going to be completely healthy with that one pill a day.
But now we're back to the horse and the water and whether people will actually be willing to do this.
There is that. That lesson came the hard way after 40 or 50 years of practicing medicine. Despite my best intentions, despite my encouragement and my supplying them with the water they needed, they still didn't take the water.
So these devices, are they pads or just boxes that you have to be in front of, or different kinds of devices?
There are different kinds. And so one of the things that distinguishes what I do from what other people do, if I'm a vendor, I have a machine that is a whole body mat that's got crystals in it and has infrared and so on. Well, I'm selling that machine. That's all I know. That's all I'm going to tell you about. I'm not going to tell you about the other better machines over here, depending on what you're trying to treat. So really, you have to know the person. So we have a range of devices. Just like in your practice, you have a range of prescriptions for different needs, right? So PEMF therapy is the same in that sense. You have to supply the person with the right piece of equipment. Now, if you happen to have osteoporosis and you happen to have recurrent UTIs and you happen to have gut issues and you happen to have hypothyroidism, well, then we have to do a more comprehensive treatment plan for that person. So it's not just the osteoporosis that we're treating.
So that's the kind of thing that you would do as a consultant in your current practice. Is that correct?
Correct. And on the website, the books, I recommend the books. Certainly, the third book that I wrote called Supercharge Your Health. I don't provide references. So the geeks in our listening audience, right, the people who really want to learn and are willing to spend the time and effort making their brain go nuts with the learning that they're doing now. Beyond that, then you want to just go to, how do I do it? I say, I accept the science, just how do I do it? And Supercharge Your Health has the algorithms and the protocols in it. And
Okay.
discusses also how magnetic fields, all the different things that magnetic fields do. On my website, drpawluk.com, I have a huge amount of information, a huge amount of resources for all kinds of conditions. I have like 70 different blogs and then all kinds of interviews as well. So we cover the waterfront in terms of whatever the PEMFs can do. And they do an amazing range of things for the same technology. But you still have to account for the depth. You still have to account for the area that you're treating, right? You have to account for your age. You have to account for the intensity of the magnetic field. All of these things have to be considered. And we do consultations for that. Our team will take phone calls for that. But I do recommend people educate themselves as much as they can first. Because if you're going to make an investment in a $10,000 machine, it may not be $10,000 that what you need, but say if you're going to be investing in a $10,000 machine, educate yourself first. Right? Now, we will support you and help you to use whatever equipment we recommend the right way so that you get the best results. Because you can have the right equipment but not use it properly.
Can you comment on heart disease? I'm always going back to the top causes of mortality and morbidity.
Right.
Morbidity being symptoms that you have that are life impacting. And heart disease is certainly high up on that list, either coronary artery disease, the arteries being narrowed, or congestive heart failure, the heart not pumping very strongly. Is there a role for PEMF in those conditions in heart disease?
I personally don't think there's a role.
Okay.
I think it's necessary. If you have heart failure, or if you've had a heart attack, or if you have a stent, you've got a heart that's already in trouble. And by the time you get there to get that stent, your heart's already in trouble. And it's going to be somewhat ischemic and somewhat impaired. So you get those tests that tell you how impaired your heart is. I have a blog on my website. That blog is more extensive than what's in my books typically. So I'd advocate you look at that. There's a blog on heart failure. Now, you may not have heart failure. You may be at risk for heart failure. If you had a heart attack, you're at risk. If you have coronary artery disease, you're at risk, right? If you have vascular disease in general, you're at risk. The blog is about heart failure. And if you learn about heart failure, you learn about all the things that magnetic fields can do to a heart that are positive. Repair tissue, energize the tissues. One of the most important things PEMFs do is they increase ATP.
Okay.
So if the heart has to regenerate ATP for every beat.
Right.
So if
the
you're doing
energy source.
It's the energy source for the cells to beat, to the beating. And so what happens then is the magnetic field stimulate that production up to 400%, between 100 to 400% increase in ATP production at the time you're using the magnetic field. So here's where you go back to the question, how much treatment do you need? How long does an ATP molecule last?
1 beat, I think, right?
Well, in this case, it happens to be regenerating. You have to do 1 beat. Typically, each molecule of ATP in the body is recycled about 200 times a day. Each one recycled. We produce our body weight in ATP every day. So we need to keep producing it all the time. So doing one treatment is going to give you a blush of ATP production for a while. And if you're a runner, it'll give you enough of a blush of ATP production that you can basically sprint more effectively. But it's going to burn out as well down the road.
Yep. What about blood pressure and diabetes, the other two conditions that are so prevalent and so impactful on our risk of heart disease, stroke, and dementia, and cancer for that matter?
And cancer. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Critical. So diabetes. What is diabetes? Besides the fact that it's an insulin problem, it's an insulin sugar problem, right?
Right.
But that's not the problem. What do the high insulin levels or high sugar levels actually do in the body over time?
Lots of bad things.
A lot of bad things, but one of the key bad things is the vascular system. And what does it do to the vascular system? It clogs up the blood vessels. So blood
The blood
density
vessels get stiff and
and
non-compliant.
are not reactive. Exactly. So PEMF therapy decreases inflammation in the blood vessel wall. This is where it goes to hypertension. So the blood vessel wall actually becomes more elastic.
Mm-hmm.
But what causes that problem to happen in the first place? Inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So the diabetes generates inflammation in the blood vessels, which then generates the production of plaque, but also injures the tissues, so the tissues can't pump as well. So PEMF therapies, I believe anybody who's pre-diabetic or diabetic, certainly you have to clean your diet, no doubt about it. And I would do that certainly first. But you have to do magnetic field therapy on an ongoing basis every single day for the rest of your life, because diabetes never sleeps.
Right.
Right? So diabetes is one thing. Vascular disease, atherosclerotic vascular disease is very important. Atheroma production, endothelial dysfunction precedes
The cells in the lining of the blood
vessel, which are
vessels.
one cell thick, but they line every blood vessel. And so inflammation of the endothelium is what leads to the development of atherosclerosis, which then leads to the blockages of the blood vessels. So by the time you get to a blocked blood vessel with atherosclerosis, you've gone through this whole progression of change. And so if you can catch it earlier, you eliminate the problem. But if you don't change the diet, change your lifestyle, maybe change your attitude, maybe change your perspective on things, well, it got to be a comprehensive solution.
Mm-hmm. Great. And you did talk about cancer in your various websites that maybe you could give us a little brief insight into how this therapy may work with that.
So it's amazing. The research was done in Russia back in the early 70s. They did all kinds of research with PEMF therapy. As I said, the magnetic therapy book shows that it's been going on for a long time. So what they found is that magnetic fields actually can cause apoptosis. They can cause the death of the cancer cell, but it's not radiation therapy. It's causing the death of the cancer cell because the metabolism of cancer cells is out of whack anyway. Right? So if you restore the metabolism of the cancer cells take care of themselves. The magnetic therapy doesn't cause the cancer. It causes the body to do the work it needs to do to help to control the cancer. So what I found is that in my research, one of the most important factors to cause cancer of any kind, and I especially work with breast cancer, one of the most important causes is hypoxia. So hypoxia is low oxygen levels. So low oxygen levels in the tissue then leads to production of a molecule called HIF, hypoxia-inducible factor, which then causes a lot of changes related to the cancer. So PEMF therapy stops that hypoxia, stops the inflammation. So first of all, it's going to help to bring blood supply into the tissues, which then decreases the HIF production, which then decreases the inflammation. So the whole thing begins to cascade, and you got a whole series of events now that support the tissues to fight the cancer. So no, we're not fighting the cancer directly. We're fighting the cancer environment, so the cancer can't grow. But cancers that are hypoxic become chemoresistant. They become radiation resistant. And they also become nutrient resistant because they can't get in. So there's plenty of research now that shows that virtually all cancers are associated with hypoxia. Almost all cancers. If you look at the normal tissue oxygen levels, and then you look at the tissue oxygen levels in tissues around cancer, every one of them is low. So PEMF therapy increases circulation, increases oxygenation, decreases inflammation. So the whole list of things that happen with PEMF therapy. So it's not direct cancer killing, and we do see tumors shrinking. There was one study that I quoted in one of my cancer webinars. Is a woman has failed various conventional medical therapies, and she was a stage 2 or stage 3 breast cancer, and they ran out of options for her. She did the PEMF therapy, and she lived the next 20 years.
Wow.
Right? And for breast cancer, actually for cancer in general, the biggest mistake people make is to just treat the tissue where the cancer is.
And not the rest of your body, which is crucial in surviving cancer. You need your own your own immune cells and nutrition and a whole bunch of other things to be alive and be healthy. Yeah.
To be optimized, exactly correct. So the PEMF therapy is an important step in that process. But the key message that I make to people, especially women with breast cancer, is at the time of initial diagnosis, that cancer has already been there for 8 to 10 years. It's been growing very slowly over that period of time. But at the time of the diagnosis, research is showing at Northwestern University, they showed that basically 40 to 60% of women at the time of diagnosis already have stem cells in their bones. Both breast cancer stem cells in their bones. But it's not active. So those stem cells are waiting for activation. They don't have to be activated, but if they are activated, then what happens is you start to produce METs in the bones.
Right.
And the METs are what unfortunately kill most women who have breast cancer. So if you don't die of something else and you had a history of breast cancer and you're treated conventionally, you don't go to people like yourself or myself, then you're probably going to end up dying of your breast cancer. So that means you have to be aggressive with your whole skeleton from the time of diagnosis. It's not just treating the breasts. You got to be treating the whole skeleton, because the breast cancer itself is not going to kill you. It's the consequences downstream that are going to, unfortunately,
not locally, the local.
Not the local breast cancer itself, correct.
But the distal metastases out in the periphery.
In the periphery.
Yep.
And that goes with all the solid organ cancers as well. So it goes with
liver,
colon cancer,
lung,
it goes with liver,
brain,
It goes with prostate cancer. So this is a big mistake we make with prostate cancer as well. Where does cancer in the prostate end up? In the bones. And so what happens is if you're not treating the bones to prevent the cancer from developing, so once they get the initial treatment, then you have to continue to treat every day for the rest of your life to prevent the bone cancer. But there's an unfortunate side effect from doing magnetic field therapy like that.
What's that?
You're going to be healthier in general. Right? So that's really key. The toe bone is connected to the head bone, right? We know that. Right? And so one of the things that I tell people, this is an expression that I've been saying probably too often, but one of the biggest risks with getting the right PEMF device and treating yourself the right way, you could potentially hear choirs of angels, but hopefully more when you're ready to go. But what may happen though is you may get the urge to put on a cape
and fly around.
And then I said, I don't care what cape you wear. You can wear as many capes as you want, different flavors, different colors, activities. But I said, if you get the urge to jump over something tall, call me first.
So grandiosity is a side effect of this, as we say in medicine.
Well, I don't know if it would be a side effect, but there's hopefully edge that way without becoming fully there.
Are there any other conditions that we senior women would be particularly interested to hear about that you have found in your experience as a clinician or in your research to be impacted so well by PEMF therapy?
Well, I get this from clients that I've consulted, and then I do follow up with them, and they say, my skin's better. My face is better, because PEMF therapy increases collagen production. It makes the body make it.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's a very good one. Yep. So you get a glow. This is part of the urge. You may end up with a glow, and people say, well, what's wrong with you? You got a glow.
Wonderful. Well, anything else we need to hear about today?
So I think probably one of the most important things as a former family physician and holistic physician is that women are preoccupied often by menopause, or they're preoccupied by hot flashes, or they're preoccupied by vaginal atrophy. But really, a woman, the vagina and the uterus are all connected to the rest of you. Right? So we have to think holistically. Don't just think about what a menopausal woman needs.
Yep.
The whole person and the whole body.
Yep. We're starting to understand about how our gut talks to all our other organs. Our brain and our gut are very well connected. our oral flora are connected to the rest of our body. The whole
and our oral flora is
to,
nasty stuff.
Yep.
You don't want to bite yourself. Human bites are actually sometimes worse than animal bites.
Dog bites, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, yeah. Well, this has been fantastic information, and you gave us your website if people want to take dive deeper into some of these topics or get in touch with you. And I thank you so much for this great intro to a very, very important field in healing. So thank you so much, Dr. Bill.
You're very, very welcome. And I want to just tell people that this is not that complicated a topic. It's just so easy to put a magnet on or put a magnetic field on. It's very easy to use. We can make it, I personally can make it very technical and very complicated, but we don't need to do that.
I saw one of your other videos about Faraday's and Gauss and logarithmic decays and so on and so forth. So again, if there are people who love that kind of stuff, it's all out there. You can easily find it.
The science is there, but there's also the practical aspect of it, which is how do you use this? Which machine do you get? What's the best way to use it? How do you get the best value from it?
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Take care. If this is of interest to you all listeners and viewers, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends so that they can hear this important information as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Women's Healthspan Voices podcast. If today's episode spoke to you, follow the show and share it with a friend ready to take charge of her health. And please leave a review. It helps more women find us.